From CBS 2 News, this is a special report.
Mayor de Blasio is giving an update on the coronavirus outbreak in New York City. Let's listen in.
To begin with, we've all been through so much that's been disorienting. And it's very, very strange the way time flows together nowadays for all of us here at City Hall, and everyone has been fighting this battle. It just seems like one continuous day from the beginning of this fight, and we know there's a lot up ahead. And I know all of you are dealing with the frustrations of everything we used to think was a routine being disrupted. And we're all trying to make sense of it, and everyone's doing their best and trying to help each other through. So since it's hard to remember sometimes what day it is or what week it is, I thought at least I could do a service by telling you what month it is. Well, this is an undeniable fact. It is now May. Strange as that may seem, it is May 1st, and we are embarking on a new month. And I hope it will be a transcendent month. I hope it'll be a month when we make profound progress. March was a shocking month like nothing we've seen in the history of this city. The beginning of April was extremely troubling. It looked like this disease might grow and grow. Thank God, largely due to your good efforts, things started to change in April, and by the end of April, we saw a much better situation. We've got a long way to go, but May, I think, is going to be a decisive month and a chance for us to do something great here in this city. So, understanding that May is here, we also know that with that comes the warmer weather, and that's what's predicted for this weekend. We all are noting that the weather reports are talking about temperatures in the 70s, so the spring fever, we're all going to feel it more and more. And particularly our young people are restless, and I don't blame them. And it's been a tough few months, and now the warm weather's going to pull at them. So the truth is, May can be a great month for this city in terms of fighting back and really starting to turn the tide on this disease, but it's going to require us to be tough and disciplined. And the warmer weather will make that harder. But I've seen so much from all of you already, so much achievement in fighting this disease. I have no doubt that we all will buckle down together and get it right. The bottom line is we cannot let up now. And the indicators that we go over every day are telling us a really important story, a good story, but a cautionary tale too, and a lot of information that helps us understand why we can't take our foot off the gas just yet. Let me frame this by saying that the indicators really are the evidence. Think of them as sort of the key to everything. The indicators help us to understand what's really going on and how to make our decisions and how we all need to act. And it keeps coming back to the things that you do show up in these indicators. When people practice social distancing and shelter in place, the indicators get better. If at any point people were to be less disciplined, you would see it pretty quickly start to come true, unfortunately, in those indicators in a negative way. Now, we believe in showing you this information and talking about it constantly. There are some other parts of the country that have not done that. They have not focused on the evidence as part of their reopening and fostered a community conversation about it. And I hope and pray for them that doesn't backfire on them. I hope and pray for the people of those states that their governments did not act in a hasty manner or an evidence-free manner, because that creates tremendous danger to people's health and that distinct possibility of the disease reasserting itself. We're not going to let that happen here. That's the bottom line. As I said yesterday, we do not expect a perfect linear, march to exactly what we want in the way of normalcy. Won't be exactly perfect every day, obviously. There'll be some ups and downs. But what I do believe is that by being transparent, we can ensure that we stay on top of this disease and do not allow that kind of really dangerous, big kind of boomerang effect that I think happens if there's a decision to open up before the facts back it up. So each day when I hold a press conference, we go over the indicators, and then every Friday what I'm doing is to talk about the big picture of what the indicators show us over a more expansive period of time, put it all in perspective. Okay, So what do the indicators tell us when they look at them in big picture? The first thing they tell us is don't count your chickens before they're hatched. That this virus is tragically still alive and well and living in this city. That we have not beaten it, and we should not take it lightly. It's a fearsome enemy, and we need to understand this enemy if we're going to beat it ultimately. Today, when I go over the indicators, you will see some good things for sure. We've seen that many days. But you have to put it in perspective of what's happening around us. So yesterday, New York City, 2,637 confirmed new cases of the coronavirus in the 5 boroughs. That is a huge number. The number of people we lost yesterday, 202 New Yorkers lost their lives yesterday to the coronavirus. These numbers, when we look at them compared to where we were a few weeks ago, maybe we feel a little better, but we can't forget that each and every one of these cases, each and every one of these numbers is a human being. And we can't for a moment forget what we would have thought about this. If I said these numbers to you 3-4 months ago, it would have been staggering. That's what happened in a single day in New York City. It would have been staggering. We can't get numb here. We have to realize that numbers like that tell us there's still a real fight ahead, even if we're going to be tugged by that warm weather, even if we want it to be over, and Lord knows we all want it to be over. We got to look at those realities square in the eye. So, everything I'm telling you is context. The biggest reality, I fundamentally believe this, we will win this fight ultimately. It is a matter of time. No one knows exactly how much time, but we will win this fight ultimately. But we have to be cognizant. We have to understand our enemy if we're going to win this fight. We cannot forget these realities if we're going to win this fight. So there's a direct correlation between acknowledging these realities, being honest about them, understanding what that calls all of us to do, and then how we ultimately beat this disease back and open our lives up. Anyone who wants to get back to normalcy, that toughness you're displaying, that discipline is the way back. So let's talk about the indicators in the context of a longer period of time. So on indicator number 1, daily number of people admitted to hospitals for suspected COVID-19. Well, this chart speaks volumes. It's very striking, and you see it and you get very hopeful. And you should be hopeful, but you should also be sober about the larger reality at the same time. So this is how many more patients we need to care for each day in our hospitals. Now, when you look at the progress, the peak that we experienced with this disease, we now know back on March 31st, 850 new cases, one day, 850 new admissions to the hospital for suspected COVID-19. On April 11th, when we started putting out these indicators publicly, so basically 3 weeks ago, went down to 383. That's great. By April 22nd, last Friday, 176. By today, 136. Fantastic. That's the good news, real progress. However, remember the numbers I told you a moment ago. Overall, the number of new positive tests, the number of people who have passed away, and that 136, we feel good about that number, but we still have to remember why we shouldn't feel good about that number, because that's still the number of people every single new day that we're seeing go in to the hospital. So part of what I think is really important to contextualize this is to say, okay, that kind of progress looks incredibly steady, and it is. But at the same time, what would it feel like if we opened up in an atmosphere where there were still hundreds of people each day going into the hospital? It was bad enough they had to go into the hospital and be admitted to the hospital for COVID-19. If there were thousands of new positive tests each day, that means every single one of those people potentially could be spreading the disease. For losing people every day in large numbers, what does it say to us? It says that if you open up too soon, you can pretty much guarantee a resurgence of this disease. That amount of activity immediately tells you that you open the door a little bit for this disease, it comes back strong. That's what we will not allow. Now, we've talked a lot about test and trace, and we're going to keep talking about it. This is going to be the game changer, the ability to go after each of these cases and find everyone else who might be affected and test widely, and we're building that up rapidly. But you can see at the numbers we're talking about now how daunting a task that is if you're still talking about thousands of new positives each day. That just puts in perspective how much we have to do. Now let's go to indicator number 2, the daily number of people in ICUs across our public hospitals for suspected COVID-19. Now, what does this tell us? Well, it tells us a lot of New Yorkers are still fighting for their lives. And it tells us that our public hospitals, which have borne the brunt of this crisis, are still experiencing a lot of strain. And we need to get to the day where there are almost no New Yorkers, one day we hope 0 New Yorkers fighting for their lives, and we have to get to the day where our public hospitals can rest assured that they can handle whatever is being thrown at them, including all the many, many challenges they deal with in normal times. So this number is encouraging, again, because there's some decrease, but you'll notice the difference between this chart and the last chart. There's decrease, but nowhere near as sharp a decrease. This causes real pause. You know, when we launched these indicators 3 weeks ago, our ICUs, our intensive care units in our public hospitals, were basically at double their normal capacity. So there's been improvements since then, but still not back to normal. And again, listen to the numbers. We all like progress, but then you still have to listen to the raw number. April 14th was the day where we saw the most people in these ICUs, 887. By last Friday, it was 786. By today, 704. Steady progress, obviously, but not sharp progress, and 704 people is a lot of people. So, more to do, and a particular focus that this chart makes you think about the lives of the people right now who are fighting to survive, but it also makes you think about our healthcare heroes who are there every day supporting them and backing them up. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to thank some of the folks who came to the defense of our healthcare heroes. We had leaders of our military here at City Hall, and General Terrence O'Shaughnessy, who has been a key figure in providing help to New York City. He came with some of his other leadership, and we talked about the impact that our military medical personnel have had in our public hospitals, which has been outstanding. I want to thank the Army, the Air Force, the Navy. Deep thanks to General O'Shaughnessy, and also to people who I look forward to thanking directly, Secretary Esper, General Milley, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They really came to the defense of New York City. Right now we have almost 700 military medical personnel in our public hospitals. Because remember, this shows you that our public hospitals are still strained and our healthcare heroes are still fighting a really tough battle, and it's been going on for 2 months. But they got an incredible boost when those extraordinary medical professionals from the military showed up, and they're sticking with it. And we are getting the good news that we expect them to be here during the month of May as well to back up our healthcare heroes. So that's something really, really important. But you look at this and you say, okay, we're really not out of the woods. We got to save lives. We got to protect our healthcare heroes. And this chart reminds me, and should remind all of us, if you jump too soon, that number starts to go back up, that number goes up too much, then you're back into the challenge of trying to expand hospital capacity. You're talking about field hospitals and everything else again. That's a place we do not want to go. Okay, indicator number 3, percent of people who tested positive for COVID-19. Well, this obviously is the indicator that talks about how widespread this disease is in our city, and we're going to get a better and better picture as we add more and more testing. So this is a great story. The citywide percentage is really improving pretty steadily. On April 11th, when we started the indicators, 58%. By last Friday, 30%. Today, 23%. That's fantastic. Very, very hopeful sign. And the public health lab, which again is a particularly rigorous standard, we saw real progress today, and this is exciting to see as well. When we launched, 78% of their tests were coming back positive. By last Friday, 52%. By this morning, 17%. Now, that's fantastic. Now, this number has gone up and down quite a bit, so I want to note it's every day based on the facts that day. It's been, as you can see, a much choppier pattern. So again, we should never get overconfident, but we're happy to see this progress. This certainly shows we are still decelerating. And decelerating is the name of the game, and that gets us to that point where we can do that big handoff to test and trace and then take the next big step. We still cannot say with assurance that we're out of the woods when it comes to that point about plateauing. Right now, it looks really good, but we are not to a point where we can say we are absolutely sure we won't have some kind of level off, and we do not want that level off. That prolongs this agony we're all dealing with, cooped up in our homes and everything else. So these numbers we need to keep pushing down steadily. Now, how do we get where we want to get? So right now, again, we're in widespread transmission by any measure. The numbers I've been over today, especially the number of new cases and the number of deaths, that is clearly widespread transmission, I'm sorry to say. We need to get to low-level transmission. Low-level transmission is when you can trace and act on every single new case, period. So the indicators tell us a lot about how we get to that point and how we sustain that point. But the indicators, again, reflect action. It's very organic. It has to do with what you do. Social distancing, when it's honored, it has an amazing impact. Shelter in place, staying at home, has an amazing impact. If it loosens up, it will show up in the numbers. We've seen some very, very unfortunate examples. And we are just not going to tolerate them. We've seen gatherings where it's not going to be gatherings. Just want to be crystal clear. The minute NYPD knows about a gathering, that gathering is over. So if you want to get to low-level transmission, you want to get to normalcy, you can't participate in a gathering. You can't condone a gathering. You can't tell anyone it's okay, you look the other way. If you hear about a gathering, call 311 immediately. Report it. So the handoff that I want to get to is we keep driving down these numbers just as the test and trace is building up and we hit that sweet spot where the numbers come down, the test and trace comes up in terms of capacity, and the test and trace becomes so strong that literally every single new case, we can trace the contacts and act on them with quarantine, with testing, et cetera. Now that takes the pieces coming together. We're making a lot of progress in terms of testing, but we have more to go. And we absolutely need that federal role. We're making real progress in terms of building up a tracing apparatus, real progress in terms of building up a quarantine and isolation apparatus with hotels. Everything needs to move rapidly in the month of May. It's going to be a huge logistical effort. Remember, everyone who goes into a hotel for isolation or quarantine needs all the supports that have to go with it. They need the food, they need support from medical personnel, everything. All that has to be provided. That's what's being built right now. So all of that will get us where we need to go, and I want to see us rapidly make progress in the month of May. That big apparatus building and these numbers continuing to go down. And we'll go over the indicators regularly, and if they keep moving in the right direction, we're going to make more, we have more and more ability for that handoff to go well and then to get to that low-level transmission period. That is the gateway to starting toward normalcy. These numbers go in the wrong direction, we're going to stay tight. We're going to stay in a situation where we do not allow the disease to reassert. So real transparency here and a real warning about what happens if we slip up, but a very positive reminder of how close we're getting to the point where we can start to make even more progress. So today's daily indicators, after all that context, today's daily indicators show you again just how it's still way too gray a situation, and it's something we have to fight harder to overcome. Kind of a mix, progress in some ways for sure, and progress particularly with the public health lab, which has been the toughest measure, but not overall progress that we need to see. So on the first indicator, daily number of people admitted to hospitals for suspected COVID. That went up. It went up only slightly, 129 to 136. It's not horrible, but it's not what we need. We need it to go down. The daily number of people in ICUs across health and hospitals for suspected COVID went down, but only by 705 to 704. 704 is not a good number. Progress, but not the kind we need. The percent of people who tested positive, unfortunately, that one went up for citywide, 22% to 23%, but again, a very small increase. So we've got a lot of effective break-evens here. The good news, and this is very good news because it is the toughest measure, is that the public health lab went down, and it went down markedly from 36% to 17%. So that is the hopeful reality today. Okay, now, we're going to do a lot of things in this next phase in May. And when I say phase, I don't mean yet getting to low-level transmission. We're going to have to earn that. We're going to have to fight for that. But I mean that in May, May becomes the time. If March was the time we were dealing with that horrifying, unforeseen, unheard of upswing in this disease, April was the month we were beating back from the worst and making real progress. May is the month where we do something transcendent, particularly because we build up test and trace. Now, we're going to use every conceivable tool. Yesterday, I talked about the fact that we're going to have stronger enforcement efforts, not just by NYPD, but by a variety of other agencies, that we're going to have people out there on top of enforcement, educating, providing the face coverings for free. We're going to do all sorts of innovative things to keep people helping each other through this crisis and supporting them and pushing them, and of course enforcing. We're going to use all the tools creatively and assertively to keep making progress. So whenever we have a new tool, we're going to talk about it and the impact it can make. So now I'm going to talk about the Open Streets Initiative. Now, this is something I want to thank the City Council for their partnership. And it's been worked on not just with the council, but with, of course, the NYPD and Department of Transportation. The open streets are going to be another way we help encourage social distancing, because the warmer weather tells us we're going to have a new challenge. And we combine the fact that we have to meet that challenge by understanding where people are going to be. Again, we're going to require social distancing, face coverings, and people only being out for just the period of time they need for their exercise and then get back. But we do know warmer weather is going to draw out more people. That's obvious. And we also know that, thank God, the NYPD and all our agencies are getting back their personnel in really great numbers. So they're regaining their strength in terms of being able to enforce farther and farther across the city and better. So with the City Council, we agreed that we would put together a plan to open 40 miles of streets in May, 100 miles overall in the course of this crisis. And the focus would be on those streets near parks, because we expect them to attract a lot of people in the warmer weather. We want to expand the parks, if you will, by opening up these streets. And, of course, the hardest hit neighborhoods, the place where we've seen this disease have the most devastating effect. So today we'll announce the first 7 miles, over 7 miles, in fact, of these open streets, and these will all be opening on Monday. 4.5 miles are inside parks. There are areas that will now be devoted to pedestrians, bicyclists. 4.5 miles, and that's made up of Callahan Kelly Park, Forest Hill Park, Fort Tryon Park, Flushing Meadows Park, Grant Park, and Silver Lake Park. And then 2.7 miles of streets that are adjacent, near parks, that'll help to expand and affect the parks. And that'll be at Carl Schurz Park, Court Square, Highbridge Park, Lieutenant William Teague Triangle, Prospect Park, Stapleton Waterfront Park, and Williamsbridge Oval. That's a beginning, and we're going to build out from there. So this is an initiative where we think is going to help a lot. It's going to go where people need it to go. And again, this is an initiative that we can do with proper enforcement by the NYPD and the Parks Department and all our other colleague agencies. So you can expect that this is going to help people to have some more space, but also with vigilant eyes to make sure there's no gatherings, there are no attempts by people to create sports or group activities, we're not going to allow that. We're going to keep making sure people socially distance and keep making sure people have face coverings, and anyone who doesn't happen to have one, more and more, someone will be offering you one out on the street if you don't have one. Now, I'm going to close in a moment, but I want to talk about something very, very sad. This really, I heard about it late last night, and it really hit me. We have lost someone who came to our aid, to our defense. And there's something particularly painful when someone does the right thing. A fellow American comes from across the country to try and help the people in New York City, and while working to save lives here, gives his own life. It's very painful. It's heroic. It's something we honor, but it's very, very painful that we've lost this good man. Paramedic Paul Cary from Aurora, Colorado, part of the FEMA relief effort, has died of the coronavirus. For 3 decades, he served the people of Aurora, and then came very bravely to serve us. He did not have to do it. He made the choice to come here to save lives. And remember, when he and so many other paramedics and EMTs showed up from around the country, it was a very, very tough moment. We were having the highest number of 911 calls in the history of New York City. And the disease was growing in its impact, and lives were being lost, and we needed every hand on deck. And Paul Cary is one of those people who came. And I got to tell you, it just hurts that such a good man has made the ultimate sacrifice for us. So to the Cary family, we honor Paul's sacrifice. We honor what Paul did. He clearly saved lives while he was here. We honor all of you. We grieve with you. And we're going to find a way to create a special memorial for Paul here in New York City, to remember all those who came to our defense, the paramedics, the EMTs, members of the military, so many good people, doctors, nurses from around the country. So many people came to help, but Paul gave his life for us, and we're going to honor him in a particular way. So everyone, look, it's a reminder of the sacrifices that we've seen. So many public servants, so many people who serve you have been lost. We've lost 4 of our own members of EMS. We've lost 10 members of the FDNY overall. First responders, heroes have been lost. Healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, everyone who threw themselves into this battle. So right now we need to be there for their families. We need to be there for their colleagues who are hurting. Imagine how tough it is to be fighting still this battle every day and have lost someone who served with you. We will do a lot to support their families, and we will do a lot to remember them and honor them. But I want you to remember, if you really want to honor these heroes, then it's up to you to stick to the rules we're living by now. Every time you do, you help stop the spread of the disease. Every time you help stop the spread of the disease, you're going to save lives. And the lives you save could include our first responders and our healthcare heroes. So I want to make it personal for you. I don't want anyone separating your own actions from what it means for the people around you. I want you to take it personally and realize that if we do what we're capable of doing, we're going to save a lot of lives. And every time we don't, we could endanger someone like Paul. And we can't have that. So, look, we've talked today about the real progress we've made and the challenges ahead. The good news here is we are winning this fight. There's no question in my mind we're winning this fight. The bad news is we have not yet won. That's the honest truth. Declaring victory prematurely has been proven down through history to be a very dangerous thing. And when anyone, from the president on down, talks about liberating a city or a state without making sure that the facts support it and the protections are in place for people's health and safety, that's not liberation. That's actually damning people. That's damning them potentially to their deaths. And we will not allow that here in New York City. We're going to come back, but we're going to come back safely. And 8.6 million people together have been doing something extraordinary. We got some more to do, but I have absolute faith we will get there together. A few words in Spanish.
You've been listening to Mayor de Blasio give an update on the coronavirus outbreak in New York City. We're now returning to regular programming on CBS 2. For extended local coverage, stick with our streaming service, CBSN in New York.
This has been a special report from CBS 2 News. We now return to our regular programming.